everyone. Welcome to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another Women of Horror Spotlight. Today with us, she's a returning guest, and she has a movie that's in production right now. It's called Perfect Soul, and she has a movie that's also going to be streaming soon. It's called Return of the Corn Zombie. I have with us Ann Myrna. Ann, welcome back to the Horror Realm.
Thank you so much. Great to be here again.
It's always a pleasure having you on. Now, so first, Ann, listen, you're working on a lot. You're a producer, actress. Tell us a little bit about Perfect Soul.
So, Perfect Soul is a book to film adaptation. S.J. Herman wrote the book Perfect Soul, I think back in 2013, I want to say. And one of his dreams has always been to adapt his books to film. So he turned that into a screenplay. Like when he writes books, his imagination can go wild. And when you make films, you have to get practical about particularly in the horror and paranormal realm, what you could actually pull off on screen that would be credible and not cheesy looking. Um, so he's, kind of scaled back on some of the effects and some of the deaths because it's a horror movie. So of course there are deaths. But so he, got that down. It was a novel, so he got that down to. It looks like it's going to be between an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 45 minutes long. So it's the story of a woman named Nikki, a young woman named Nikki. She lives in a very secluded religious town. And it turns out that in that town, way back in the late 1700s, they had burned witches. And part of her heritage is in the line of those witches, and circumstances lead to them, the witches, kind of reconnecting with her and coming back to seek revenge on the town that caused them harm so long ago. And so, she goes through a lot of mental duress because these witches kind of appear and only she can see them, nobody else can see them. She kind of thinks she's crazy or under a lot of stress. Plus, her environment being a religious town, um, there's no talk of things like witchcraft. Everyone is super, super conservative in their actions and, totes a Bible around with them all the time and believes that, God is keeping everything just the way it should be and perfect. But of course, besides the witches, some of the town residents are like committing sins, not leading the life that they appear to be leading. So the book is also, and the movie is also about um, just like who people really are and what they might hide behind to disguise their true selves.
And I love that idea. I definitely love that idea. Now, yeah, that's the first time I'm hearing. I know that happens, but it's the first time interviewing, someone who is adapting a book into a screenplay. Because, like you were saying, when you're doing a book, your imagination can run wild. You can put whatever you want in there. And when you do a movie, you got to be budget, especially indie, you got to be budget friendly. You can't have 100 heads flying off. So and yes, so was it tough to do that because as something a lot more big budget filmmakers did? Was that something a lot harder to do as an indie filmmaker?
Well, we are working with a very, very, very small budget. In fact, we have a crowdfunding campaign open right now. We've opened a second campaign for it because we raised a little over $10,000 for the movie, um, and we were able to film 7 days, 7 full days. Well, last day wasn't so full because it was raining and we were trying to do exterior scenes. But that's one of the problems you have to work around when you're on set. Um, so, we're going for some more money because basically we need to finish what we've started. And since we targeted exterior scenes in June so that the foliage and everything would look the same, so we've got a little bit of exterior left and then a lot of interior scenes to do in September. We do rely on practical effects and also the power of suggestion. And a lot of indie films have to do that because you can't actually show a knife going into someone. You can show the motion and then you show the after effects where you have a stub knife that's latexed onto somebody and you've put SFX blood on it. So we use those techniques to get the horror across to people. This particular film is not a bloody film necessarily. There's different subgenres of horror, and so slashers are extremely bloody, and that's
Hmm.
why people watch them, because they want to see just like how over the top the blood and the gore will be. Um, this is more of you could call it a religious horror, but it's not a story about religion. It's a story about revenge, but it is in a religious setting. You could also call it a supernatural like thriller, because at first you don't really know who these witches are and how they're connected, and they're appearing out of nowhere, and they're kind of tormenting this girl a little bit. So there's a bit of like a mystery as to how all the pieces fit together, which makes for a good story because the viewer stays engaged then. And one of the benefits of adapting a book to film is that the book already has really good reviews. So we know that people like the story. And so it's not a matter of whether or not people will like the story. The story is very good and very intact and very interesting. It's just a matter of how can we convey it all with a very, very limited budget.
Yeah. Because I imagine that's tough to do. Because you've done it too. Everybody has. You read a book and you fell in love with the book, and they adapt into a movie, and it just doesn't hit the same way as the book did.
Right, right. And we're hoping this one will. We've got some really good special effects makeup to so the thing with witches, before I talk about the actual makeup itself, back in the day, when people went after witches, you think of witches being hung, right?
Hmm.
Um, the really bad witches, the ones that people were super afraid of, they either both hung and then burned, or they just burned them at the stake. So like not all witches were burned, not all witches were hung, type of thing. So we got a little bit of both going on in our film. Um, and so the burned witch, she was perceived to be the most powerful one. Her makeup is quite scary. It's like, like we would see her in the makeup chair, because we stay in an Airbnb together, and a lot of the interior scenes are done there. So, like you're walking in and out of the kitchen, and you see, oh, Caitlin's getting her makeup on. And then you walk back in and she turns her head, and it's like, oh my God, you look pretty scary. And that's just like up close and in person. And then when you add lighting and you add camera angles and you also do color treatment, we've got a couple of clips out on the Indiegogo campaign that kind of show you. It's not necessarily the final clips of those scenes, but it's close to it, so that you can get a feel for really what it is that we're trying to create here.
Love it. Now, Anna, I've had you on the show a couple of times. You're a jack of all trades. What's they say, a Jill of all trades. I mean, you produce, and you sit there with directing, and you also act in the films. Is it tough wearing multiple hats on a project?
It's getting easier. It is difficult, and it kind of, I was like super nervous the first time I both acted and produced in the same film. But so I do have a role in Perfect Soul. My character's name is Madeline Barrett. It's actually like I'm not in a lot of scenes and I don't have a lot of dialogue, but when I do, it's a very creepy character. Madeline is very disturbed in a very unusual way. So it was, and the scene that I have is with my son, who's played by Deacon Walter, and he is many, many years my junior. Um, we had to really just like talk through what we were going to do in the scene, kind of like choreograph the movements and things like that. And we were giggling like crazy when we were running it down in the kitchen, because it's just so awkward of a conversation to have with somebody. But then when we got up into the room where we had it set and the lights were there and the camera was there, we just went through it, and, we nailed it pretty quick. And there wasn't any breaking character or anything while we were filming, because we were both just like so focused on what we had planned to do and executed it accordingly. So, usually as I'm preparing for a film, there's tons of work for the producer to do pre-production. And again, we're talking indie film, so I'm like all the producers. So with larger productions, there are different levels of producers and they have different assignments. I get to kind of like touch all those things. So choosing locations, I scouted locations last year. and went out and I made a video of this farm where we're filming, and brought that back to the production team, and everybody signed off on that location. Um, and we've got interior and exterior stuff. So I was like walking around the yard, like we could hang witches here, that kind of thing. So location is a big thing, and we like to get that set, and we like to get the filming dates set with the cast way, way in advance. Because the last thing you need is for some of the talent to all of a sudden say, oh, but like I've got this other opportunity and it would pay me more. And so I kind of need to go do that. We get the commitment early. We ask people to sign letters of intent even before we start fundraising. And then we communicate with people. And, like I can't overemphasize the importance of clear communication and frequent communication as well. Even with things like call sheets and like what days you're working, what days you're not working, I can communicate with each cast member individually. And then also as a group, and we tend to use Messenger and do a group chat. So yeah, you can't have too much communication. And then personally, as we get closer to the filming, I just have to kind of divide my time and just decide, okay, tomorrow I'm not working on any pre-production stuff. I am only going to work on my character and work on my lines and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I break it up.
How do you have time in your day? Because um, I can imagine there's a lot. I've become friends with filmmakers, and I see their schedule, and they're trying to juggle a family life with a full-time job. But to add on, your other part of your life, which is filmmaking and acting, when do you find time in your day to do all this?
Excuse me, a little tickle in my throat here. Well, filmmaking now is kind of my job. I used to do IT consulting and had my own consulting company for over 30 years, and I no longer do that, but I do some of those tasks under EquiStar Productions. So, for instance, I will design websites for people, but I just do the billing under EquiStar Productions. So I didn't want to have my personal income tax return to do and multiple corporate income tax returns to do, to be quite honest. So I just kind of roll those services that I'm still interested in doing and under EquiStar. But yeah, the filmmaking world though is weird though because it's not 9 to 5. A lot of times people are very active in the evenings, and I again have not worked in an office since, oh my God, the 90s. But I tried to keep, particularly when my children were young, I tried to keep work during the day, like while they were at school, and then the evenings were for family. So now there's different things going on in the evening, and I just kind of tell other family members, well, like I've got a podcast to be on. Last night I went into Chicago to see a screening of Shivers because Lynn Lowry was there signing autographs and stuff. She's become a good friend of mine, so I wanted to support that event for her, do networking with people. So I just kind of, like put it on the calendar, like I'm gonna be busy these times, and kind of work around it. But it is important to maintain a balance. I mean, everybody's got to have other things to kind of divert your brain away from the details that go along with filmmaking.
I agree. I even had to take a little hiatus from the horror room show. I was like, this is too much, and I had to take a month and a half and just decompress. Cause I was like, this is overwhelming because it can be a lot.
Yeah, and it's really hard, like with what you do, where you want to deliver content in specific intervals and stuff. I mean, that's a commitment, and then people who follow you are expecting that, and you don't want to let them down and stuff. So, yeah, I'm careful about like what those kind of commitments that I make
Yeah.
because it is hard to do that always on an ongoing basis. So I kind of like flip back and forth between things, and even now we're starting pre-production for a feature film that we're doing next year that we won't be talking about because it's a secret. But we hope that it's a big splash. So we're doing a lot of things strategically to get set up for the announcement of that. And again, the world of indie filmmaking, we rely on crowdfunding. we like seriously want to make a dent with crowdfunding with that film. I mean, we've done a lot of feature films. This is our eighth feature film in just several years period of time, and we've raised over $100,000 on Indiegogo. We've delivered 7 completed feature length films for $100,000.
You can't beat that. That's rare. That's
Well, we
rare.
work our butts off, but we want to be the filmmaker that is now delivering that film for next year with a budget over 50K for sure. Like, we don't want to do the movie if we can't have those kind of funds to put behind it, because the concept won't work if we do it at the 10K level. So we're trying to evolve ourselves a little bit to that higher level plane, which every indie filmmaker is trying to do the same thing.
Yeah,
Um, you know, we do support other small filmmakers, go to their events, donate a little to their crowdfunding here and there. There's plenty of room in the world for all of the filmmakers to be successful. And we just want to help get the word out about indie film so that people who, you know, have only watched studio films will think, oh, like, what is this indie thing? Let me go find some of these films and check them out and enjoy them.
I agree. Now, listen, we're going to talk about another project here. It's going to be on streaming soon, and I'm going to tell you something about this film too. I'm pretty sure I was offered a role in better ways called Return of the Corn Zombie. I'm pretty sure this is the film that I was offered a role because I live in Maryland, and it was a scene shot in Maryland, and I was going to be a farmer. I was going to be murdered by some zombies, but it rained that day, and I couldn't accommodate the reshoot date. But tell us a little bit about Return of the Corn Zombie.
Yeah, what you're describing is not us because we don't film
Oh,
in
okay.
Maryland. We film in Central Illinois, which is a barrier to some people to work with us because they're on the East Coast or they're on the West
Yeah,
Coast and we're like smack dab in the middle of the country. But Chicago's a pretty big airport and they got a lot of planes coming in and
yeah.
out of Chicago. But I recently was filming in Pennsylvania and I met some of the people from the East Coast who have supported our films in the past. And it was so great to meet them in person. And I'm like, come on out to Chicago. Like, I came out here. You could come out there. Like, oh, so far. So we tend to do our filming in Central Illinois. Um, Return of the Corn Zombies is a sequel to Attack of the Corn Zombies, that has been, you know, kind of like re-released by Bayview Entertainment, and they have also released Return of the Corn Zombies. The Return has been picked up by several streaming platforms, but not released to those platforms yet. So the kind of the process is Bayview takes the movie, you know, shows it to a bunch of people and says, here, you know, who wants the movie? And they say, I'll take it. And then we published, oh, you know, Zumo and Fossum are going to, you know, support Return of the Corn Zombies. They don't, the way streaming platforms work, they don't really like give out a big notification. Oh, you know, it's coming out on this day specifically. We might get a rough time frame, but until it's actually out and like you could search for it and find it on those platforms, we kind of hold back a little bit. So we will be notifying people once those actually hit the platforms. And then Bayview will go from, you know, various advertising based platforms, some of the, you know, pay to view platforms, and eventually, you know, show up on Tubi, which is where everybody tends to look for things, and Amazon Prime as well. Um, so yeah, it's a sequel to the first one, although it's not like a direct pickup. It
Hmm.
happens, it starts 2 years after the first film. So basically, we've gone from Attack of the Corn Zombies, which is a little on the campy side, although it's not necessarily written like that. It's more written as a serious story. But there are, you know, stereotypical late '60s character types. There's you know, greasers and you know, hippies, and of course we have farmers because it's a farming kind of thing. Um, and Return of the Corn Zombies is more apocalyptic. It's very dark in tone. There are zombies everywhere. They're not just occasionally popping up, they are everywhere. And there is a collection of people at a place called the Homestead, which is supposed to be a safe place for everyone. But of course, the Homestead is not. as nice as it initially appears to be. And crazy things happen at the homestead, and that gets found out. There's a bit of a rebellion. We have some awesome, awesome scenes in there. Again, the makeup is over the top. Beth Metcalf has done SFX for Perfect Soul and for both of the zombie movies. Since they are corn zombies, which are zombies that kind of became zombies because they ate tainted corn, you have people with like a piece of a corn stalk growing out of their neck or corn kernels latexed onto their face and all bloodied up and everything. So it's a very unique zombie look because we didn't want to copy any of the franchise movies. We like original ideas. So it's a very different movie. If you like zombie movies, I think you'll still like it a lot. Again, practical effects almost the entire time. What else can I say about it? Great cast. Everyone was so prepared. We shot that one in 7 days, and that's a lot for a movie that has special effects and several different locations. So it doesn't all just happen in one place. So when you have to move your entire cast and crew to a different location, like hope nobody forgot anything, like part of their costume or a weapon or whatever. Um, it can kind of eat into the schedule, but we had great locations to use, so there's a lot of visual variety, and then really good performances, and there's some emotional parts to it too. I mean, you will care about the characters in Return of the Corn Zombies.
Now, now, before we watch the sequel, should we watch the first one, or is it like a standalone where you can watch Return of the Corn Zombie and be like, okay, I get the story?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need to watch Attack of the Corn Zombies in order to get what's going on with Return of the Corn Zombies. But of course, if you watch both, then that's some more ad revenue that comes
100%.
to us. Although, like, uh, filmmakers don't make a lot of money off the streaming platforms. If anybody is telling you that they're getting rich, maybe they're lucky. Maybe it was good timing or whatever. But yeah, you're getting paid pennies on the dollar, and the different platforms work in different ways. So it's impossible to say, I'm always making X dollars per month on Tubi or whatever. Like it's there's so many things that factor into the equation for what you get paid that people who are telling you that are kind of disguising some of the facts or not giving you all the facts, which also makes it difficult to do things like let people have an equity stake in the film. So that's one thing that gets asked about as we do crowdfunding is, well, if I donate a certain amount, does that mean I get a percentage of the back end? Um, I'm very ethical, and I don't like giving people a percentage of close to nothing.
Yeah.
And it would just take an totally unpredictable period of time, as with any investment, to recoup your initial investment. Um, but like maybe it's a little worse in the film industry in terms of the ability to make your money back off of the initial investment. So we have not taken that approach yet. We'd have to be at a much higher level and working with distributors who have way further reach than the people who are interested in working with us at the budget level that we're at. I mean, those are just facts.
And this is a question I've never asked anybody in any filmmaking um, circle. So when you get a movie up on a streaming service like Tubi, Amazon, is there a set time frame that they're going to showcase your movie on that platform?
Um, the timing is not necessarily set with the platform individually, but it is set with the distributor that puts it on the platform. So we have an agreement with Bayview Entertainment that we have a contract that we signed, and that contract says for a specified period of time, you have the rights to put the movie where you feel fit, type of thing. And so they do that. And just to kind of give you an example, so with Attack of the Corn Zombies, we had released that, but only to Amazon Prime. And we did that ourselves because you can self distribute to Amazon Prime. We started talking to Bayview. They looked at our catalog. They wanted to pull a couple of titles into their catalog, and Attack of the Corn Zombies was one of them. And they want to put it on Amazon Prime. but under the Bayview banner, not under the EchoStar banner. So we had to contact Amazon and say, can you please take the movie down? And then once they took it down, then Bayview submitted it to put it back up again, but under their banner. Um, like the filmmaker has control in terms of how long you want to do a deal with somebody.
Okay.
And then I have heard that there are not so reputable distributors that then won't take your movie down from the other platforms or whatever. Like we don't have any negative experience in that regard.
Awesome. All right. And listen, where can everyone find you and your work?
You can find Acrostar on Facebook. You can actually go to acrostarproductions.com. From our website, we have links to our IMDb company page, which then links to all the titles. Also to our Facebook group, which has about 6,000 members in it, where we're constantly updating what's going on. And then we also have an Instagram account. For me personally, just search for Ann Myrna. There's only one of me. I don't have one of those common names, so I'm pretty easy to find. My Facebook profile is public, and my Instagram is as well. And I have a website, annmyrna.com.
Also, too, I believe you go on Tubi and you put in your name and search. It comes up with all your movies that you're in.
It does, and I think Amazon does as well. There was some other platform where I was just fooling around, and every now and then I Google my own name. Like you should do that, just to make sure like nobody's like cloning your profiles or talking trash about you. Yeah, I've searched for my own name and I'm like, oh look, I'm in movies.
It's fun being on IMDb. I'm on IMDb. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an actress. I mean, definitely fun, definitely to check it out. Because I did see someone use my name or something. Well, I seen on IMDb there was some roles that I was not in. I was like, I was not in that movie, but I'm like, okay, well, they must have.
Like that can happen because on IMDb, if there's more than one person with the same name, then they make a page that has a Roman numeral after your name. Yes. So like Travis Bruce, Roman numeral 1, number 2, number 3. And so when I, as a producer, somebody buys a perk that includes IMDb credit, and I see that their name is Joe Smith, and I look on IMDb and there's like 35 of them, I will individually message people and say, send me a link to your IMDb profile page. Now, if it's somebody who's new to getting credits on IMDb, it's very confusing. So I will take the time and I will explain them because they'll typically have gotten a login to the IMDb website. That's not your profile page. That's just your login. That's for you. I don't need that. I need a page that talks about you, and that's your IMDb profile. And so if they don't already have one, I will create a free page for them, and then I send them that link. And then I also send them instructions from IMDb on how you can claim your page, is the terminology that they use, so that then you could log in, you could add credits to your own account, you could write a bio for yourself. If you've got a paid account, you could add a picture to it. I also advise new people, like, don't pay for an IMDb account out of the gate. Wait till you get some credits built up. And then if you're going to really do this, then go ahead and, pay their fee, because then you can add a picture and a demo reel and, things like that. But until you've done, a block of work, there's really no need to pay that fee.
I can definitely understand that. And once again, blast having you on. I'm gonna have you on. I'm pretty sure by the end of the year, because you got a whole bunch of other projects coming out.
Yeah, we'll be announcing this new one. We're chomping at the bit, but we got. The thing is, I don't want to inundate people with too much at one time, and I'm afraid that if we don't finish the Perfect Soul campaign, we start talking about something new, people will be like, no, wait, like I gave money to Perfect Soul. Are they like not going to finish it? Like, what's going on here? So we are holding off on announcing that until after we, finish this 30-day Perfect Soul campaign. So that ends, I think, August 10th. So I would anticipate end of August or so, we'll be kicking something new off. And then, I'll hook up with you, and then I can talk about it, because it's going to be awesome.
Yes. Oh, by the way, everyone, get over to get over get over to Indiegogo and also support the Perfect Soul crowdfunding as well. Some amazing perks
Great.
that you
Yeah,
can.
you can just search for the title Perfect Soul, and it'll come right up. And we appreciate all the support from everybody. I look at each and every contribution. I thank people individually. I used to thank them publicly on social media, and then some people were like, "Oh, like when you do that, then a bunch of other filmmakers come jumping down my throat to give them money. So please don't do that." So I handle it as a one-on-one conversation, and yeah, I thank everybody. You give me $1, I'm going to thank you,
Yes,
because it
and
is
she really does
it is
because
greatly appreciated.
because I donated. I can't think. I donated to I think a couple of your, and you definitely messaged me directly, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're building a relationship with people. I don't just want the money. I actually want to know about you and, like look and see what other movies you've been interested in and things like that. And then it's really cool because over time we've seen that people who've contributed to our campaigns are now creating some of their own content. And so I'll throw them a little donation when they run their
Yeah,
campaigns. Like it's really cool to see people follow their dreams and achieve their goals. And that's what we're all about.
I agree. All right, listen, everyone. Well, thanks for coming back to the horror realm. Sorry I've been gone for a while, but I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Ann Myrna. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you.